When I bought my farm outside the city, I wanted to escape the endless noise of Washington, D.C. I'd spent my whole career working in aviation, starting as a pilot, moving into safety oversight, and eventually being appointed as director of the Federal Aviation Administration. It was a job filled with constant pressure, politics, and responsibility. By the time I reached my mid-50s, I craved quiet evenings on a porch, mornings in the fields, and time with my horses. What I didn't crave was an HOA trying to run my life. From day one, the HOA president, a sharp-tongued woman named Karen, made it clear she didn't like me. Maybe it was because I was the only black farmer in the area. Maybe it was because I refused to pay dues to an association I wasn't even part of. Or maybe it was simply because bullies always look for someone they think they can control. She sent me letters about unsightly farm equipment, fined me for my tractor being too loud, and once even called the cops because my barn didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. I ignored her nonsense. After all, I'd stared down you. Senators, airline CEOs, and foreign dignitaries. An HOA president wasn't worth my time. But then, one morning, I woke to the sound of construction equipment. At first, I thought a neighbor was repaving their driveway. But when I stepped outside, I saw bulldozers and trucks carving a strip of asphalt across my western field, tearing up my pasture, ripping down fences, and destroying months of hard work. What in God's name do you think you're doing? I shouted, storming across the dirt. Karen stood there, clipboard in hand, a smug grin plastered on her face. "We're improving the neighborhood," she said smoothly. "This is going to be a private runway for our community. Luxury air park living. We voted and the majority approved it. Since your land connects to ours, we've appropriated it for the project. You'll thank us later when property values skyrocket." I stared at her, dumbfounded. Appropriated? Lady, this is my farm. My land. You can't just bulldoze through it because you took a vote at some HOA meeting. She smirked. "You'll find out soon enough, Mr. Farmer, that you don't really have a choice." I bit my tongue and walked away. But, in my mind, I was already planning my move, because what Karen didn't know, what none of them knew, was that runways, airstrips, and aviation facilities are regulated at the highest federal level. You can't build one without permits, environmental reviews, and FAA approval. And the man in charge of all of that was me. So I let them continue. For weeks, I watched as the HOA poured their funds into the project. Contractors paved a long strip of asphalt, residents bragged about their upcoming air park, and Karen strutted around like a queen. They even ordered small hangars to be installed, planning to attract wealthy pilots to the neighborhood. They had no idea they were building a federal crime scene. When the ribbon-cutting day came, they threw a massive party. News crews were invited. HOA members took selfies on the tarmac. Karen gave a speech about progress and how her vision would bring prestige to the community. I stood at the back of the crowd, silent, waiting for my moment. That night, I made one phone call. By sunrise, a convoy of FAA inspectors and federal marshals rolled onto the property. They walked the entire runway, measuring, inspecting, and documenting. Neighbors peered out from their porches, whispering as men in uniforms sealed off the area. Karen came storming up, furious. "What is this? Who authorized you to be here?" I stepped forward, pulled out my federal ID, and said, "I did. I'm the director of the Federal Aviation Administration. And you, ma'am, have just built an unauthorized, illegal airstrip across federally protected farmland." Her face went white. She stammered, That can't be possible. We had approval from the board." "Your HOA board doesn't overrule federal law," I replied coldly. "This project violates multiple aviation codes, endangers air safety, and constitutes unlawful seizure of private property. Effective immediately, this runway is shut down. Anyone attempting to use it will be arrested." The look on her face was worth every ounce of patience I'd exercised. Within days, the fines began rolling in. Millions of dollars in penalties for unauthorized construction, lawsuits for environmental damage, my own civil suit for property destruction. Contractors who worked on the project were dragged into legal battles, furious at the HOA for misleading them. And because the project had been funded through HOA dues, residents turned on Karen with a vengeance. She was screamed at in meetings, ousted from her position, and eventually forced to sell her home to pay off the debts. As for the runway, the FAA ordered it demolished. Bulldozers returned, not to build, but to tear everything up. Asphalt was hauled away. The land was restored to its natural state. My fences were rebuilt, my pasture replanted, and my horses once again grazed where Karen had once promised luxury air travel. But I didn't stop there. I issued a formal directive declaring that no air facility could be constructed within 20 miles of my farm without direct federal oversight. That meant the HOA's dream of ever building anything similar was permanently dead. Months later, I ran into Karen at the local grocery store. Her once perfect appearance was gone. She looked tired, frazzled, and beaten down. She muttered something about me ruining everything. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You tried to take what wasn't yours. You broke federal law. You thought I was just some farmer you could push around. Next time, remember you don't own the sky. I do." That was the last time she ever crossed me. And as I sit on my porch now, listening to the quiet hum of crickets and watching the stars overhead, I can't help but smile. The HOA thought they were building a runway for their dreams. Instead, they paved the path to their own downfall. Because if there's one thing people like Karen never learn, it's this: respect the land, respect the law, and never underestimate the man who protects the skies.